Matthew Cole's finger rested on the trigger when the knocking started. 3 years he'd lived alone in this Wyoming cabin, 3 years since fever took his wife and daughter. 3 years of silence. Then she appeared in his doorway, half-frozen dress, torn, an Apache woman who should have been dead. She didn't beg, didn't cry, just looked him straight in the eye and said, "Let me in or we both freeze." He hesitated. She pushed past him, and everything he'd buried came screaming back to life. Hold on, if this is your first time here, smash that subscribe button right now. Stay until the end, because what happens next will break your heart and put it back together. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this story reaches. All right, let's go back to that night in 1881. The door shook under her fist. Matthew didn't move. He stood 3 feet back, rifle raised, watching the shadow break apart, the lamplight seeping through the cracks. "Open up!" A woman's voice, hard. "Now!" His finger touched the trigger. "Go away." "Can't do that. Try harder." "You want a corpse on your doorstep? That what you want?" Matthew's jaw locked. 3 years he'd managed this total isolation. 0 complications, nobody asking him questions or looking at him with pity. And now some stranger was about to ruin it. "I'll be dead in an hour," she said through the wood. "You can explain that to God, or whoever the hell you answer to." He cursed under his breath, crossed the room, through the bolt. The door swung in. She fell against the frame dress, shredded feet, wrapped in bloody rags, ice crusted in her short black hair. But her eyes burned. Apache mid-20s scar cutting down her left cheek. She looked at the rifle, then at him. "Shoot me or move." Matthew stepped aside. She limped past, heading straight for the fire. Didn't collapse. Didn't thank him. Just stood there absorbing heat like it was the only thing keeping her upright. He slammed the door, shot the bolt home. "Who's following you?" "Nobody right now." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." She turned firelight, catching the fury in her face. "You got water." He filled a tin cup from the barrel and shoved it at her. She drank it in 3 swallows, held it out for more. He refilled it twice before she spoke again. "Name's Naya." "Don't care." "Matthew Cole. I saw it carved over your door." He grabbed the cup back. "You need to leave." "Can't. Storm's getting worse." "Not my problem." "It will be when you find me frozen outside come morning." She sat hard on the bench near the fire, started unwrapping her feet. The cloth came away stiff with blood. "You got bandages." Matthew stared at her torn skin, the blackened toes. "Frostbite. Bad. She'd lose at least 2 if she didn't get help." "Damn it," he muttered, moving to the shelf. He grabbed salve and clean rags, dropped them beside her. "Do it yourself." Wasn't asking for help. Good. But when she tried to reach her feet, her hands shook so bad she couldn't grip the jar. Matthew watched her struggle for 10 seconds before his conscience, the one he thought he'd buried with Sarah and Emma, kicked him hard. He knelt, took her foot in his hands. "Don't. Shut up." He worked fast, cleaning the wounds, applying salve, wrapping them tight. She didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. When he finished, he stood and walked away before she could say anything. "How long you been running?" he asked, his back to her. 4 days. "From what?" "Traders at Fort Bridger. Said I owed them. Said they'd sell me south if I didn't pay." Matthew turned. "You steal from them." "I existed. That was enough." Her voice went flat. "They're coming. Maybe not tonight, but soon." "How many? 2, 3, maybe 4? Armed?" "Of course they're armed." She leaned back against the wall, exhaustion finally showing. "Why do you care?" "I don't." "Liar." Matthew grabbed his rifle, checked the load. "You bring trouble to my door, it becomes my trouble. That's all this is." "Sure it is." He ignored that move to the window, pulled back the oilcloth. Snow fell so thick he couldn't see past the woodshed. Wind screamed through cracks in the walls, making the lamp flame dance. "Storm's bad," he said. "Nobody's tracking anything tonight. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you leave. What if the storm doesn't break? Then you leave anyway." Naya laughed, short, bitter. "You really want to be alone that bad?" "Yes." "Why?" Matthew's hands tightened on the rifle. "None of your business." "You lost someone. I can see it." She gestured at the cabin, 2 chairs, 1 worn, shelf with 2 plates, 1 dusty. "You're living in a grave." "Get out." "Can't. Storm, remember." "Then stop talking." "I lost everyone, too." Her voice dropped. "Fever took my mother. Soldiers took my father and brother. So I know what you're doing, punishing yourself for surviving." Matthew spun around. "You don't know anything about me. I know you opened that door. I know you bandaged my feet. I know when you looked at me you saw something worth saving." She met his eyes. "Even if you can't save yourself." The silence stretched tight. Then Matthew set the rifle down hard. "There's a bed in the corner. Take it. I'll sleep in the chair." "I'm not taking your—" "You'll take it, or I'll throw you back outside." She studied him, then nodded. "Fine." Naya limped to the bed, lay down fully clothed, pulled the blanket up. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, not peaceful sleep, but the collapse of someone who'd pushed past every limit. Matthew settled in the chair, rifle across his lap, watching the fire burn low. Outside, wind howled. Inside, someone else breathed in his space for the first time in 3 years. He should have felt violated. Instead, he felt something worse. Relief. Thud. Matthew woke to silence. Wrong kind of silence. He lunged up, rifle clattering. The bed was empty. The door was scraping. Outside. He yanked the door open. Naya stood in waist-deep snow, using his shovel like a weapon against the drifts. She'd wrapped herself in his spare coat, 2 big sleeves past her hands. Her breath came in sharp bursts. "What are you doing?" She didn't stop. "Working. You can barely walk." "Don't need to walk. Need to dig." She drove the shovel deep, heaved snow aside. "I'm not dead weight." "I never said." "You didn't have to." She turned, and he saw the steel in her face. "You let me in, fed me. Now I earn my keep. That's how this works." Matthew stared. This woman had run 4 days through winter, feet shredded, and now she stood in his doorway, refusing charity like it was poison. "You need boots," he said. "Don't have any." He disappeared inside, came back with Sarah's old boots. He'd kept them in a trunk under the bed, kept everything like a shrine to his failure. He held them out. "Wear these." Nia's eyes widened. "Those were my wife's." "Yes, she doesn't need them anymore." "I can't." "You can." He pushed them into her hands. "Stuff the toes with cloth." She took them slowly, sat on the doorstep, pulled them on. With rags stuffed in, they fit. "Thank you," she whispered. Matthew grabbed his own shovel. "Let's work." They dug in silence, cleared the doorway, made a path to the woodshed, checked the horses. The animals were fine. Naya spoke to them in Apache low words that made the mare's ears flick forward. "You know horses," Matthew said. "My father raised them, before the soldiers came." She didn't elaborate. He didn't ask. By noon, the storm had eased. Sun broke through, turning the snow into blinding white. Matthew made coffee, while Nia sharpened his hunting knife. Her movements practiced. She tested the edge, nodded. A thin line of blood appeared on her thumb. "You're bleeding," he said. "It's sharp now." That wasn't the point. It was exactly the point. She set the knife down. "Can I ask you something?" "No." "Why didn't you turn me away?" Matthew poured coffee, set a cup in front of her. "I already told you. You said you didn't want a corpse on your conscience. But that's not all of it." He sat across from her, hands wrapped around his cup. When you knocked, you didn't beg. You stated facts, like you were offering a trade, not asking for mercy. I was. I've spent 3 years drowning in pity. Sorry for your loss. God has a plan. All that. He looked up. You didn't do any of that. You just needed something. And I could give it. That's all. Your wife, Nia said quietly. How did she die? Matthew's jaw worked. Fever, 3 years ago. Started with Sarah moved to Emma, our daughter. She was 4. You nursed them. Every hour. Didn't matter. They died anyway. So you built this place. Far from town. Far from memories. Far from everyone. You built a grave and climbed in alive. His eyes snapped up. What? That's what you did. I did the same thing after my family died. Stopped speaking Apache. Cut my hair. Became nobody. She leaned forward. But being nobody hurts worse than being somebody. Because at least when you're somebody, you remember what you lost. Matthew stood abruptly, chair scraping. He moved to the window, pressed his forehead against the cold glass. I can't do it again, he said. Can't care, can't hope, can't bury another person. I'm not asking you to love me. Then what are you asking? Let me stay until the snow melts. Let me work. Let me... Her voice softened. Let me remind you that surviving isn't the same as living. He turned. They'll come for you, those traitors. I know. I won't let them take you. Nia stood. I didn't ask you to fight. I'm not asking permission. He crossed to the table, leaned forward on both hands. You stay, we prepare. Check weapons. Stock ammunition. Because when they come, and they will, we end it. Permanent. Something flickered in her eyes. Not fear, recognition. You mean kill them? Yes. Why, you don't even know me. No. But I know men who think they own people. And I know what happens if they take you back. His voice went hard. So we kill them. Or die trying. Your choice. Nia stared at him for a long moment. Then she extended her hand across the table. Partners. Matthew looked at her hand. Hesitated. 3 years he'd avoided this connection commitment, anything that could hurt him. His hand started to pull back. Then he saw it, the way she stood spine straight despite exhaustion. The way she'd demanded respect instead of asking for it. The way she looked at him like he was still a man instead of a ghost. He clasped her hand. Partners. They shook once, firm. Outside, the sun climbed higher, melting snow. Inside, 2 survivors made a pact. That night, Matthew spread his bedroll near the fire while Nia took the bed. They didn't speak. But the silence felt different now, not empty, but full of shared purpose. Matthew was drifting off when her voice cut through the dark. Matthew. Yeah. Thank you for not treating me like I'm broken. You're not. Neither are you. He didn't answer. But his hand found the rifle, and something tight in his chest loosened just slightly. Hours passed. Then, a sound. Faint. Outside. Matthew's eyes snapped open. He lay perfectly still, listening. There, again. Horses. Multiple. Moving slow through deep snow. He rose, silently crossed to the window, peered out. Torchlight. 3 riders. Maybe 200 yards out, picking their way through the drifts. His blood went cold. Nia. His voice was barely a whisper. Wake up. She was already sitting up, eyes wide. They're here. How did you know? I didn't. Her voice shook. I hoped I'd lost them. Matthew grabbed the Spencer, checked the load. How many did you say? 3. Maybe 4. I count 3. Could be more behind. Nia slid out of bed, moved to his side. Together they watched the torches bob closer. What do we do? she asked. Matthew's jaw set. We give them one chance to leave. If they don't take it, we kill them. Yes. She looked at him. You sure about this? No, but I'm not letting them take you. Why? You barely know me. Matthew turned, and for the first time in 3 years, his eyes held something other than emptiness. Because you knocked on my door and reminded me I'm still alive. And I'm not ready to go back to being dead. Outside, the riders stopped 50 yards from the cabin. A voice rang out through the cold air. We know she's in there. Cole, send her out, and we'll leave you be. Matthew moved to the door, cracked it open, rifle pointed out. She stays, you leave, last chance. Laughter echoed back. You don't know what you're protecting, old man. She's worth $200 to us. She's worth more than that to me. Matthew's voice dropped to a growl. Ride away or die here. Silence. Then, have it your way. Gunfire exploded. Wood splintered. Matthew slammed the door, dropped behind the table. Nia grabbed the Colt, fired back through the shutters. How many rounds you got? She shouted. Enough! Glass shattered. Lead punched through the walls. The lamp exploded, plunging them into flickering firelight. Matthew sighted through a crack, squeezed the trigger. Outside, a man screamed. One down, he yelled. 2 to go. Nia fired twice more. The shooting stopped. Voices argued outside too far to make out words. Then hoofbeats. Fast. Retreating. Matthew risked a look. 2 riders were hauling the wounded man onto a horse, turning away. They're running, Nia said. They'll be back. Matthew lowered the rifle. With more men, better guns. He turned to her. In the firelight, blood streaked her face, his blood from a splinter that had cut his cheek. Her hands shook, but her eyes stayed steady. We can't stay here, she said. Where do we go? I don't know, but if we stay, we die. Matthew looked around his cabin, the home he'd built with grief, the grave he'd chosen. Then he looked at Nia, this woman who'd crashed into his life and torn open everything he'd sealed shut. Pack food, he said. Ammunition, blankets. We leave before dawn. And go where? North, into the mountains. There's an old trapper's cabin 2 days from here. We hole up, wait for them to give up or freeze. And if they don't give up? Matthew checked his rifle, his face hard. Then we make sure they freeze. Nia nodded. I'll get the horses ready. She started for the door, then stopped. Matthew. Yeah. Thank you for choosing me over your peace. He met her eyes. Peace is overrated. I'd rather die fighting beside you than die alone in here. She smiled, small but real. Let's not die at all. Deal. They moved fast, packed supplies, saddled horses, loaded weapons. Just before dawn, they stood in the doorway looking back at the cabin one last time. You regret this? Nia asked. Matthew thought about Sarah and Emma, about 3 years of silence and sorrow. Then he looked at this fierce Apache woman who'd knocked on his door and demanded to live. No, he said. I don't. They mounted up and rode into the gray pre-dawn, leaving the cabin dark behind them. Somewhere in the distance, torches flickered. The hunt was on. But this time, Matthew Cole wasn't running from life. He was riding straight into it. And he wasn't riding alone. The horses labored through snow that reached their chests. Matthew led breaking trail while Nia followed close behind. Dawn came late and weak gray light filtering through clouds that promised more storms. They'd been riding 2 hours when Nia spoke. Stop. Matthew reined in, turned. What is it? She was twisted in the saddle, staring back the way they'd come. Smoke. 3 miles, maybe 4. He followed her gaze. A thin black line rose against the gray sky. They're burning it, he said quietly. Your cabin. Yes. Nia watched his face. I'm sorry. Matthew stared at that distant smoke, 3 years of isolation going up in flames. He should have felt something. Anger maybe. Loss. But all he felt was a strange lightness, like chains breaking. "Don't be," he said. "It was already dead. I just didn't know it yet." He turned his horse north and kept riding. They pushed hard through the morning, following a frozen creek bed that wound up into the mountains. The trees closed in pine and spruce, heavy with snow. Matthew's mare stumbled twice. Nia's gelding was breathing hard. "We need to rest them," Nia said. "Not yet." "Matthew, they'll collapse." 5 more miles. There's a cave I know. We can shelter there." 5 miles might kill them." He pulled up, jaw tight. She was right. The horses were exhausted, their breath coming in ragged clouds. Push them further and they'd have nothing. "Fine. We walk them. Give them a break." They dismounted, led the horses on foot through the deep snow. It was brutal work, each step sinking to the knee cold, burning their lungs. But the horses recovered their breathing, evening out. An hour later, Nia spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "If I say no, will you stop?" "No." Matthew almost smiled. "Then ask." "That cabin. You built it after your wife died." "Yes." "Why so far from town?" "Because towns have people. People ask questions. Look at you with pity." He pulled his horse around a fallen log. "Out here nobody bothered me. I could grieve without an audience." "Did it help?" "For a while. Then grief turned into habit. Habit turned into existence. I stopped grieving and started waiting." "For what?" "To die, I guess. Figured if I waited long enough, maybe I'd just stop waking up." Nia was quiet for a moment. "Then, I tried that too. After the soldiers took my father and brother, I worked myself to nothing. Barely ate, barely slept. Thought if I made myself small enough, invisible enough, the pain would disappear. Did it work? No, pain doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter. And sometimes quiet is worse than screaming." Matthew glanced back at her. "How old were you when you lost them?" 22, 5 years ago. "And you've been alone since—" "Not alone. Empty. There's a difference." She stepped over a buried root. "I worked at 3 different forts. Cleaned, cooked, let men look through me like I was furniture. Easier that way. If you're nothing, you can't be hurt. Until those traitors decided you were something. Until they decided I was property." Her voice hardened. "The one leading them, man named Garrett. He's the one who grabbed me. Said I'd work off my debt or he'd sell me to a brothel in Denver. When I fought back, he hit me. Split my lip. Told me I had a week to decide. So you ran." "I stole food, boots, a knife. Left in the middle of the night during a supply run. Been running since." Matthew stopped walking. "This Garrett, what's he look like?" "Tall. Scar across his throat, missing 2 fingers on his left hand." "He the one who shot at us last night?" "Probably. He doesn't give up. Ever." "Good." Nia frowned. "Good. Means when he comes for you again, I know exactly who to kill first." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise maybe, or gratitude. "You really mean that?" "Yes." "Why? What am I to you?" Matthew met her eyes. "I don't know yet, but you knocked on my door and made me feel something other than dead. That counts for more than you think." They stood in the snow, horses steaming beside them, the weight of that admission hanging in the cold air. Then Matthew turned and started walking again. "Come on. We've got 3 more miles." The cave appeared just after noon, a dark mouth in the hillside partially hidden by frozen brush. Matthew had used it years ago during hunting trips. It was small but deep, protected from wind. They led the horses inside, unsaddled them, rubbed them down with dry brush. Matthew built a fire near the entrance while Nia unpacked their supplies. Jerky, hardtack, a tin of coffee. Not much, but enough for a few days. "How long do we stay here?" Nia asked. "Tonight, maybe tomorrow. Depends on the weather and whether they pick up our trail. They will? Garrett's good. So am I. She looked at him. Really looked. You've done this before. Run from men. Not run, hunt. Matthew fed sticks to the growing flames. Spent 2 years as a scout for the Army. Tracked Sioux Cheyenne renegade miners. I know these mountains. That's how you knew about this cave. That's how I know about a lot of things. He glanced up. Including how to lose a tracker. Even a good one. Naya sat across the fire from him. Tell me something. What? When you opened your door last night, what did you see? Matthew thought about it. A woman who should have been dead, but refused to die. Someone who looked me in the eye and demanded respect instead of begging for mercy. And that's why you helped me. That's why I didn't shoot you. He poured water into the coffee tin, set it near the flames. I helped you because somewhere under all that grief, I remembered what it felt like to care whether someone lived or died. Do you regret it? Ask me when this is over. They ate in silence, chewing the tough, jerky, sipping bitter coffee. Outside, snow began falling again, light at first, then heavier. Matthew watched it pile up at the cave entrance. Storm's covering our tracks, he said. That help us or them? Both. They can't track us, but we can't move either. Naya pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Matthew? Yeah. What happens if we survive this? What do you mean? After we kill Garrett and his men, after the snow melts. What then? Matthew stared into the fire. I haven't thought that far ahead. Neither have I, but I'm asking now. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I guess we figure out if two broken people can build something that isn't broken. You think we can? I don't know, but I'd like to try. Naya smiled, small, uncertain, but real. Me too. The fire crackled. Snow hissed against the cave walls. And for the first time in 5 years, both of them stopped running from the future long enough to imagine having one. They slept in shifts. Matthew took first watch, sitting near the entrance with the Spencer across his lap. The storm raged outside, turning the world into white chaos. Nothing moved. Nothing lived except wind and snow. Around midnight, Nia stirred. Your turn to sleep. I'm fine. You're exhausted. I can see it. I've been more tired. She crawled over, sat beside him, close enough that he felt her warmth. Let me ask you something else. You ask a lot of questions. You avoid a lot of answers. She bumped his shoulder with hers. Your wife, Sarah, what was she like? Matthew's hands tightened on the rifle. Why do you want to know? Because you loved her, and I want to know what kind of woman earns that from a man like you. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she was strong, not loud strong, quiet strong. The kind that holds a family together during hard winters and drought years. She could shoot better than most men. Rode like she was born in the saddle, but she was gentle too, with Emma, with injured animals, with me when I needed it. How'd you meet? At a church social in Laramie. I was passing through, she was visiting family. We danced once. I asked if I could write her. She said yes. 6 months later, I married her. And Emma? Matthew's voice cracked slightly. She had Sarah's eyes, her laugh. She was fearless, wanted to ride the horses, help with the cattle, follow me everywhere. When the fever took Sarah, Emma nursed her even though she was only 4. And when Emma got sick... He stopped, swallowed hard. I couldn't save either of them. I just watched them die. Nia's hand found his in the darkness. She didn't say anything, just held on. I buried them on the hill behind the cabin, Matthew continued. Under a cottonwood tree Sarah loved. I read from the Bible even though I stopped believing in God the day they died. Then I built that cabin and locked myself inside. Until I knocked. Until you knocked. They sat like that for a while, hands clasped, watching snowfall. Then Nia spoke softly. My mother died in my arms. Fever like your wife. She made me promise something before she went. What? To stay alive, to fight, to never let men like Garrett decide my worth. Nia's grip tightened. I broke that promise when I let myself become invisible, when I stopped fighting. But when he put his hands on me, something woke up. Something that remembered who I used to be. And who was that? Daughter of a horse trader, sister to warriors, Apache woman who didn't bow to anyone. She turned to face him. That's who knocked on your door. Not the empty thing I'd become, the person I used to be. Matthew looked at her, really looked. At the fire reflected in her eyes, the determination in her jaw, the strength she wore like armor. I'm glad she knocked, he said quietly. Me too. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He stiffened at first, then slowly, carefully relaxed. They stayed like that until dawn. Two people who'd forgotten how to be close to anyone relearning it one breath at a time. Morning came with silence. The storm had passed. Matthew stepped outside, scanned the landscape. Snow had buried everything 3 feet of fresh powder, erasing all trace of their passage. We're clear, he called back. For now. Nia emerged blinking in the bright light. How far to that trapper's cabin? If we push hard, we'll make it by nightfall. Then let's move. They saddled the horses, packed their gear, kicked snow over the fire. Matthew was about to mount when he heard it faint, distant, but unmistakable. Dogs. No, Nia breathed. No, he didn't. He brought dogs. Matthew spun to face her. You didn't tell me he had dogs? I didn't know he never had them before. Matthew cursed, mind racing. Dogs changed everything. They could track through snow, through streams, through anything. And they were fast. How far behind us? Nia asked. He listened. Hour, maybe less. Can we outrun them? Not in this snow. Horses are too tired. Then what do we do? Matthew looked around steep hillsides, dense trees, the frozen creek bed. Then he saw it. A narrow defile between 2 rock formations barely wide enough for a horse. There, he pointed. We go through that gap, then double back. Circle around behind them. You want to hunt the hunters? I want to kill the dogs. Without dogs, Garrett's just another man stumbling blind through snow. Nia's eyes widened. You're serious. You have a better idea. She thought for 3 seconds. No. Then let's move. They rode hard toward the gap horses, plunging through drifts. Behind them, the baying grew louder, closer. Matthew pushed his mare faster, Nia right behind him. They squeezed through the defile rock, scraping their legs, horses whinnying nervously. On the other side, Matthew pulled up. Keep going, straight north, make as much noise as possible. What about you? I'm staying here, going to thin the pack. Matthew. Go. And when you hear shooting, ride hard. Don't look back. Nia stared at him. Then she leaned over, grabbed his collar, and kissed him hard, fast, desperate. Don't die, she said. Wasn't planning on it. She kicked her horse into motion and disappeared into the trees. Matthew dismounted, led his horse back through the gap, found a position behind the rocks. He checked the Spencer. 15 rounds. Checked the Colt. 6 more. Not much, but it would have to do. The baying grew louder. 3 dogs, maybe 4, running hard. Then he saw them, lean shapes streaking through the snow. Bloodhounds. Behind them, 3 riders. Garrett in front. Tall, scarred throat, visible even at this distance. 2 others flanking him. Matthew waited until the dogs were 30 yards out. Then he fired. The lead dog went down. The others scattered, confused. Matthew worked the lever, fired again. Another dog dropped. Garrett shouted something. The men yanked their horses around, searching for the shooter. Matthew fired at Garrett. Missed. The bullet sparked off rock near his head. Garrett ducked, spurred his horse toward cover. The third dog found its courage and charged. Matthew shot it mid-leap. It crashed into the snow 5 feet from his position. "Cole!" Garrett's voice echoed through the trees. "I know it's you!" Matthew didn't answer, just worked his way through the rocks, changing position. "You can't protect her forever!" Still no answer. "She's mine, Cole. I paid for her, she owes me." That got him. "She doesn't owe you anything." Gunfire erupted. Bullets whined off the rocks. Matthew dropped flat, crawled backward, found new cover. "You don't understand," Garrett yelled. "She stole from me $300 in supplies. I'll drag her back and sell her for twice that. Try it. See what happens." More shots. These closer. Matthew risked a look. One rider was circling left, trying to flank him. He sighted carefully, squeezed the trigger. The rider jerked, slumped forward, fell from his horse. "Harris!" Garrett's voice cracked with fury. "You son of a—" Matthew was already moving, scrambling through the rocks. Behind him, boots crunched in snow. Close. Too close. He spun, fired from the hip. The second rider staggered, clutched his stomach, went down. That left Garrett. Silence fell. Matthew pressed against a boulder, controlling his breathing. Listening. Nothing. Just wind and the distant creak of trees. "Cole!" Garrett's voice came from somewhere to the right. "Just give her to me. Walk away. You don't need this trouble." Matthew checked his ammunition. 5 rounds left in the Spencer, 6 in the Colt. "She ain't worth dying for." "Maybe not," Matthew called back. "But I'm tired of living like I'm already dead." He moved again, quick and low, putting distance between himself and where his voice had come from. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done running, done hiding, done letting men like you decide who lives and who dies." A shot rang out. Bark exploded next to Matthew's head. He dropped, rolled, came up firing. 3 shots. Fast. One caught Garrett in the shoulder, spinning him around. Garrett stumbled, fell behind a snow-covered log. Matthew advanced, rifle ready. "It's over, Garrett. Your men are dead, your dogs are dead, just you left. I'll kill you." Blood stained the snow around Garrett's position. "I'll kill you both. You're welcome to try." Silence. Then movement. Garrett rising arm, hanging useless pistol in his good hand. They stared at each other across 20 feet of snow. "She's not property," Matthew said quietly. "Everything's property to someone." "Not anymore." Garrett raised his pistol. Matthew fired first. The shot took Garrett in the chest, punching him backward into the snow. Matthew approached slowly, rifle still raised. Garrett lay, gasping, blood spreading across his shirt. "Should've. Let her go." Garrett coughed. "Wasn't worth this." "You're right," Matthew said. "It wasn't." Garrett's eyes went empty. Matthew stood over him for a moment, then turned and walked away. He found his horse mounted, followed Nia's trail north. She was waiting a mile ahead, rifle drawn, ready to ride back and help. When she saw him, her whole body sagged with relief. "You're alive." "Told you I wasn't planning on dying." And Garrett, dead, along with his men and his dogs. Nia closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. "It's over. It's over." She nodded slowly. Then she started crying. Not sad tears, but the release of 5 years of fear and rage and exhaustion all coming out at once. Matthew dismounted, pulled her down from her horse, held her while she shook. "You're safe," he said into her hair. "Nobody's coming for you. Not ever again." "I can't believe it." "Believe it." They stood like that until her tears stopped. Then she pulled back, looked up at him. "Now what?" Matthew glanced back the way they'd come at the smoke still visible from his burned cabin, at the trail of bodies and blood he'd left behind. "Now we go to that trapper's cabin. We wait out the winter. And when spring comes—" He paused. "We figure out what 2 people who survived hell look like when they try to build heaven." Nia smiled through her tears. That sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. They mounted up and rode north together, two people who'd spent years drowning in grief, finally learning how to breathe again. The trapper's cabin appeared at dusk, small weathered, but solid. Matthew kicked open the door, checked inside. Empty. Cobwebs and dust, but the roof was intact, the fireplace sound. "Home sweet home," he said. Nia looked around. "It's perfect." They unloaded the horses, brought them inside. The cabin was big enough for animals and people both, built a fire, cooked the last of their jerky, sat shoulder to shoulder watching flames dance. "Matthew," Nia said quietly. "Yeah. Thank you for everything." "You already thanked me." "I know, but I'll probably keep doing it. For a while." He smiled, the first real smile in 3 years. "I can live with that." She leaned against him. He put his arm around her shoulders. And for the first time since Sarah and Emma died, Matthew Cole felt something other than grief. He felt possibility. Outside, night fell. Inside, 2 survivors rested. The war was over. The healing could begin. And tomorrow, they'd start building something new from the ashes of everything they'd lost. Morning came with the sound of wind rattling the shutters. Matthew woke to find Nia already up, crouched by the fire, feeding it small sticks. She'd found the old trapper's coffee pot and was heating water. "Sleep okay?" he asked, sitting up from his bedroll. "Better than I have in months." She glanced over her shoulder. Same. It was true. For the first time in years, Matthew had slept without nightmares. No visions of Sarah's fever-bright eyes, no sound of Emma's labored breathing. Just darkness and rest. Nia poured coffee into 2 tin cups, handed him one. Their fingers touched briefly. Neither pulled away. "What's the plan?" she asked. Matthew sipped the bitter brew, thinking. "We're low on supplies. Maybe 4 days of food left. We need to hunt." "In this weather?" "Weather's clearing. I saw elk tracks yesterday, half-mile north. If we're lucky, we'll find the herd. And if we're not, then we get creative." He stood, stretched the stiffness from his back. "You know how to dress game. My father taught me. I can handle it." "Good. Because if we take down an elk, we've got maybe 2 hours before the meat freezes solid. We'll need to work fast." They prepared quickly, checked rifles, loaded ammunition, bundled into their warmest clothes. The horses needed rest, so they went on foot, following the creek bed north. The world was silent, except for their breathing and the crunch of snow underfoot. Matthew led, reading tracks: elk, deer, rabbit. He pointed them out to Nia, teaching her the signs he'd learned during his army years. "See how the print's deeper on one side? That's a bull elk favoring his right front leg. Old injury, maybe. Makes him slower than the rest. Easier to hunt?" "Exactly." They walked for an hour before Matthew stopped, held up a hand. A head through the trees movement. He counted 7 elk, 5 cows, 1 young bull, and the limping older male. "That one," he whispered, pointing to the injured bull. "Downwind, 60 yards. Nia nodded. Matthew raised the Spencer, sighted carefully. The bull was browsing, unaware. Matthew's finger touched the trigger. He breathed out slowly, squeezed. The shot cracked through the morning. The bull staggered, went down. The rest of the herd bolted. "Clean kill," Nia said, already moving forward. They reached the fallen animal. Matthew drew his knife, began the work of field dressing. Nia worked beside him, her movements sure and practiced. Blood steamed in the cold air. Their hands turned red. "Your father really taught you this?" Matthew asked. "He taught me everything. How to ride, how to track, how to survive." She cut through membrane, pulled organs free. "He said a woman needed to know these things, that beauty wouldn't keep you alive when men failed you." Smart man. He was, until the soldiers shot him. Matthew paused. "What happened?" Nia's hands stilled. 3 years after the fever took my mother. Soldiers came looking for renegades, said my father was hiding them. He wasn't. But they didn't care. My brother tried to stop them. They killed him too. I was at the fort working. When I came back..." She swallowed hard. "They were both hanging from the cottonwood tree beside our home." "Jesus, Nia." "I cut them down, buried them, burned everything else." Her voice went flat. "Then I walked away and never looked back." Matthew reached over, covered her bloody hand with his. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You understand. That's more than most people ever gave me." They finished the work in silence, quartered the meat, wrapped it in canvas. Matthew fashioned a travois from pine branches and rope. They loaded the meat and started back, dragging the heavy load through snow. It took 3 hours to reach the cabin. By the time they arrived, both were exhausted, but they had food enough for weeks if they were careful. "We did good," Matthew said, hanging meat from the rafters to freeze. "We did." Nia washed her hands in melted snow, scrubbing away blood. "Matthew, yeah. This feels normal, working together. It shouldn't, we barely know each other, but it does." He considered that. Maybe normal is whatever you make it. Maybe it doesn't matter how long you've known someone. Just matters that you fit. And we fit. "I think so. You." She smiled. "Yeah, we fit." That night they cooked elk steaks over the fire, ate until they were full for the first time in days. Afterward, Nia pulled out a worn deck of cards she'd found in the cabin. "You play?" "Haven't in years. Sarah and I used to play every night after Emma went to bed." "What did you play?" "Gin rummy mostly. She always won." Nia shuffled dealt. "Let's see if you're any better against me." They played for hours, betting with small stones, trading insults and stories. Nia won the first 3 hands. Matthew took the next 2. By the 10th hand, they were both laughing. Real laughter, the kind that comes from the gut and leaves you breathless. "You're cheating," Matthew accused. "I am not." "You palmed that jack. I saw you." "Prove it." He reached across, grabbed her wrist gently. She'd been holding the jack of spades in her palm. When he pulled it free, she burst out laughing. All right. You caught me." "I knew it." "You're just mad because I'm better than you." "You're better because you cheat." She grinned. "Details." Matthew shook his head, smiling despite himself. "Your trouble, you know that?" "I've been told." She collected the cards, set them aside. "But you like it." "Maybe I do." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn low. Outside, wind picked up, rattling the door. Snow began falling again, light, steady. "Storm's coming back," Nia said. "Let it. We've got food, shelter, firewood. We're good for a while." "How long do you think winter will last?" "Another month, maybe 6 weeks. And then..." Matthew stared into the flames. "Then we figure out what comes next." "You ever think about going back to your land, I mean? Rebuilding?" "I've thought about it, but that place, it's full of ghosts. I don't know if I could live there again." "Where would you go instead?" "I don't know. Maybe somewhere new. Start fresh." He glanced at her. "What about you? Where would you go?" Nia pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. "I used to dream about going back to the reservation, finding what's left of my people, but I don't know if there's anything left to find." "You could look. Could you go back to your burned cabin? That's different." "Is it?" She met his eyes. "We're both running from graves, Matthew. Question is whether we keep running or stop and build something new. And if we stop, then maybe we stop together." The words hung in the air between them, not quite a promise, not quite a proposal, but something hovering in the space between possibility and commitment. Matthew broke the silence first. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "When Sarah died, I promised myself I'd never care about anyone again. It was easier that way, safer. But then you showed up and..." He trailed off, searching for words. "You made me break that promise, and I'm not sure how I feel about it." "Are you angry?" "No, scared maybe, but not angry." Scared of what? Losing you. Like I lost them. Naya reached over, took his hand. Matthew, listen to me. I can't promise I'll never die. Nobody can. But I can promise that right now, in this moment, I'm here. I'm alive. And I choose to be here with you. That's enough. It has to be. Because anything else is just borrowing fear from a future that might never come. Matthew squeezed her hand. When did you get so wise? When I stopped being so scared. She smiled. You helped with that, you know. How? You treated me like I was strong, like I mattered. Nobody's done that in a long time. You do matter. I'm starting to believe that. They sat holding hands, watching shadows dance on the cabin walls. Eventually, Nia's head dropped onto his shoulder. He shifted slightly, making her more comfortable. Her breathing evened out asleep, but not letting go. Matthew stayed awake, keeping watch, thinking about everything that had changed in 4 days. He'd gone from a man waiting to die to a man with something to protect. It terrified him, but it also made him feel alive in a way he'd forgotten was possible. 3 days passed in easy routine. They hunted, cooked, maintained the cabin, talked late into the night about everything and nothing. Matthew told stories about his army days. Nia taught him Apache words, laughing when he mispronounced them. On the 4th night, Naya asked the question Matthew had been avoiding. What happened to Sarah and Emma? I mean, I know they died from fever, but tell me about the end, if you can. Matthew was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Sarah got sick first. High fever chills couldn't keep anything down. I rode to town for the doctor. He came, looked at her, said there was nothing he could do except keep her comfortable and pray. Matthew's voice went rough. She lasted 5 days. Got worse every day. By the end, she didn't recognize me. Kept calling for her mother who'd been dead 10 years. Emma stayed by her side reading to her, singing. And when Sarah died... He stopped, swallowed hard. Emma just looked at me and said, Mama's with Grandma now. Like she understood better than I did. How long before Emma got sick? 2 days. I knew as soon as she coughed. That same wet sound Sarah had made. I tried everything, cold compresses, whiskey prayer. Didn't matter. She went faster than Sarah. 3 days, start to finish. Were you with her at the end? I held her the whole time. She was so small in my arms, like a doll. And right before she went, she opened her eyes and said, Don't be sad, Papa. I'm going to see Mama. Matthew's voice cracked. Then she was gone, just like that. And I was alone. Tears streamed down Naya's face. I'm so sorry. I buried them together. Couldn't stand the thought of them being apart. Then I built that cabin and locked myself inside. Figured if I stayed away from people, I couldn't lose anyone else. Until I showed up. Until you showed up and ruined everything. He tried to smile. Best mistake I ever made, opening that door. Nia wiped her eyes. Can I tell you something? Anything. I'm glad they had you, your wife and daughter. I'm glad they didn't die alone. And I'm glad you survived. Because if you hadn't, I'd be dead in the snow right now. And if you hadn't knocked, I'd still be dead inside that cabin. So I guess we saved each other. I guess we did. She moved closer, rested her head on his chest. He wrapped his arms around her. They stayed like that for hours, holding each other while the fire burned down and snow fell outside. Morning brought sunshine and clear skies. Matthew stepped outside to check on the horses and stopped dead. Riders. 3 of them. Maybe a mile out, moving slowly through the trees. He ducked back inside. Nia, get up. Now. She was on her feet, instantly reaching for her rifle. What is it? Riders. 3. Coming this way. Garrett's men? Don't know, but we're not waiting to find out. He grabbed their packs, started loading supplies. We leave. Now. They worked fast, saddled horses, packed food and ammunition, kicked snow over the fire. 5 minutes, and they were ready. Matthew peered out the door. The riders were closer now, half a mile. Out the back. Stay low. Head for that ridge we scouted yesterday. They led the horses out the rear window, small but big enough, and moved into the trees. Behind them, voices carried through the cold air. Anyone home? Matthew and Nia froze, hidden in the pines. Hello, we saw smoke. A different voice. Younger. Check inside, Jacob. Footsteps. The cabin door creaking open. Matthew's hand found the rifle. Beside him, Nia barely breathed. Empty, but someone's been here. Recent fires still warm. Spread out. See if you can find tracks. Matthew cursed silently. They'd left tracks clear as day in the fresh snow. No way to hide them. Matthew, Nia whispered. What do we do? We run, hard and fast. Don't look back. They mounted and kicked the horses into motion, crashing through brush, making noise they couldn't avoid. Behind them, someone shouted. There, in the trees. Gunfire cracked. Bullets whined past. Matthew leaned low over his horse's neck, urging her faster. Nia kept pace beside him. They hit the ridgeline at full gallop, plunged down the other side. The slope was steep, treacherous. Matthew's horse stumbled, nearly went down. He hauled her upright, kept moving. At the bottom, a frozen stream. They splashed across horses' hooves, breaking through ice. On the far bank, Matthew pulled up. This way. Stay in the water. It'll hide our scent and tracks. They rode upstream for a quarter-mile before climbing out on the opposite bank. Matthew picked a path through bare rock, no tracks, no trail. Who were they? Nia gasped. Don't know. Don't care. We can't take chances. You think they're still following? Count on it. They rode hard until nightfall, putting miles between them and the cabin. When darkness forced them to stop, they made camp in a small cave, no fire, cold rations. I'm tired of running, Nia said quietly. Me too. How many more times do we have to do this? Until we're too far away for anyone to follow. Or until we make a stand and end it. I vote for ending it. Matthew looked at her. You sure? I'm tired of being scared, tired of looking over my shoulder. If they want us, let them come. We'll be ready. That's a good way to get killed. So is running forever. She met his eyes. I'd rather die fighting beside you than die running alone. Matthew thought about that. About 3 years of running from grief. About 4 days of running from Garrett's men. About a lifetime of running from anything that might hurt him. All right, he said finally. We make a stand. Tomorrow. Pick the ground. Set the terms. End this. Where? I know a place. Box Canyon, 2 miles north. One way in, one way out. If they follow us there, we control the fight. And if they don't follow, then we keep moving until spring. He handed her jerky. But something tells me they will. They ate in silence, then slept in shifts wrapped in blankets against the cold. Dawn came gray and cold. They rode north, moving slowly now, making sure they left tracks. Matthew wanted those riders to follow. Wanted to end this on his terms. The Box Canyon appeared around noon, high rock walls, narrow entrance, no back way out. Perfect killing ground if you were defending. Perfect trap if you weren't. Matthew studied it, nodding approval. This'll work. We set up at the back behind cover. Let them ride in. Once they're committed, we end it. How many shots you think we'll get? 3, maybe 4. After that, it's close quarters. Nia checked her rifle. I'm ready. They positioned themselves behind a tumble of boulders at the canyon's end, rifles loaded, extra ammunition laid out. Then they waited. An hour passed. 2. Matthew was starting to think they'd lost the pursuit when he heard it hoofbeats echoing off canyon walls. Here they come, he whispered. 3 riders appeared at the entrance, the same 3 from the cabin. They rode slowly, cautiously, scanning the walls. Cole, the lead rider's voice bounced off rock. We know you're in there. Matthew said nothing. We don't want trouble. We're lawmen from Fort Bridger, just want to talk." Naya's eyes widened. "Lawmen?" "Could be lying," Matthew whispered back. "Stay ready." "We know about Garrett, know what he was doing. You're not in trouble." Matthew's finger hovered on the trigger. Something in the man's voice, desperation maybe, or sincerity, made him hesitate. "Garrett was a wanted man," the voice continued. "Had a warrant for human trafficking. You did us a favor killing him." Nia grabbed Matthew's arm. "They're telling the truth. I heard rumors at the fort, other women who'd disappeared. But I never thought—" Matthew stood slowly, rifle still raised. "Prove it. Show me your badge." The lead rider held up his hands, rode forward slowly, stopped 50 feet away, pulled aside his coat, revealing a U.S. Marshal's star pinned to his vest. "Name's Harding, Deputy Marshal out of Cheyenne. We've been tracking Garrett for 6 months. You saved us the trouble." Matthew didn't lower his rifle. "What do you want?" "Just to talk. Make sure the woman's all right. Make sure you're not in trouble." "We're fine. Mind if I come up easier to talk without shouting?" Matthew glanced at Nia. She nodded slowly. He turned back to Harding. "Just you. Your men stay back, and keep your hands where I can see them." "Fair enough." Harding dismounted, walked forward with his hands raised. Matthew kept the rifle pointed at his chest until he was close enough to see his eyes. Honest eyes. Tired eyes. "Can I lower my hands?" Harding asked. "Slowly." Harding did. "You're Cole, I'm guessing, and you're Naya." "How do you know who we are?" Nia asked. "Because Garrett kept records. Names, dates, amounts owed, all bullshit, but detailed bullshit. Your name was in there. So was his plan to sell you in Denver." Harding pulled folded papers from his coat. "This is the warrant. See for yourself." Matthew took the papers, scanned them. Official seals, court stamps. Everything looked legitimate. "Says here Garrett was wanted for kidnapping and selling 12 women over 3 years. 12 we know about. Probably more." Harding looked at Naya. "You got away. Most didn't. So whatever you had to do to survive whatever Cole did to protect you, we're calling it self-defense. You're clear." Naya's legs went weak. Matthew caught her elbow, steadied her. "We're clear," she repeated. "No charges. None. You're free. Both of you." The word free hit Matthew like a physical blow. Free. They were actually free. "What about the men we killed?" he asked. "Garrett's hired thugs. All wanted. All dead now. Good riddance." Harding tucked the papers away. "Where will you go?" Matthew looked at Nia. She looked back. "I don't know," Matthew said honestly. "Haven't thought that far ahead." "Well, when you figure it out, you've got a friend in Cheyenne. Name's Harding. Remember that." He extended his hand. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry for what you both been through. World's a hard place. Glad you found each other in it." Matthew shook his hand. "Thanks." Harding nodded, turned, walked back to his horse. He mounted, waved once and rode out with his men. Silence filled the canyon. Then Naya started laughing, wild, disbelieving laughter. Matthew caught it, started laughing too. They collapsed against each other, laughing until tears ran down their faces. "We're free," Naya gasped. "We're actually free." "Yeah, we are." "So what now?" Matthew pulled her close. "Now we stop running. We pick a place, any place, and we build something. Together." "Where?" "I don't care, long as you're there." She kissed him, then long and deep, and full of all the fear and hope and grief and joy they'd carried for so long. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. "Montana," she said. "I've always wanted to see Montana." "Montana it is." They mounted their horses and rode out of the canyon, not running this time, but riding toward something instead of away from it. Behind them, the box canyon stood empty, another battleground that never happened. Ahead, the mountains rose white and clean, full of possibility. And for the first time in years, both of them looked forward to tomorrow. They rode north for 3 days, following the high passes where the snow lay thinner and the wind cut like broken glass. Montana was still weeks away, but neither of them cared about the distance anymore. For the first time, they weren't running toward safety or away from danger. They were just moving together, and that was enough. On the 4th morning, Matthew's horse threw a shoe. They stopped in a narrow valley, where a stand of pines offered shelter from the wind. Matthew examined the hoof, cursed softly. "How bad?" Nia asked. "Bad enough. She needs a farrier, but we're 2 days from the nearest town." "Can you fix it yourself?" "I can make something work. Won't be pretty, but it'll hold." He straightened, looked around. "We'll camp here tonight. Give me time to work on it properly." They made camp in the pines, built a fire, cooked the last of their elk meat, while Matthew worked on fashioning a makeshift shoe from a piece of scrap iron he'd been carrying. Nia disappeared into the trees with her rifle. She returned an hour later with 2 rabbits. "Dinner for tomorrow," she said, holding them up. Matthew looked at her, cheeks flushed from cold hair coming loose from its braid, eyes bright with accomplishment, and felt something shift in his chest. Not the sharp pain of loss he'd carried for 3 years, but something else, something that felt like hope. "You're good at this," he said. "At what? Surviving. Making do. Most people would have given up by now. Most people didn't have a reason to keep going." She sat beside him, watched him hammer the iron into shape. "I have a reason now." "What's that?" "You." She said it simply, like stating a fact. "You gave me a reason to stop being invisible. To fight. To believe I deserved something better than what men like Garrett decided I was worth." Matthew set down his tools. "Nia, let me finish." She took his hand. 3 years ago, when my father and brother died, I stopped believing in anything. I thought if I made myself small enough, quiet enough, maybe the pain would disappear. But it didn't. It just made me disappear instead." She squeezed his fingers. "Then I knocked on your door, and you saw me, really saw me. Not as property, or a burden, or something to pity, just as a person. And that changed everything. I was half dead myself when you showed up." "I know, that's why it worked. We were both ghosts. But ghosts can't warm each other." She smiled slightly. "Took us a while to remember we were still alive." Matthew pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "I'm glad we remembered." They sat in comfortable silence while the fire crackled and stars appeared overhead. Eventually, Nia spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "When we get to Montana, what are we going to do? I mean, we can't just wander forever." Matthew had been thinking about that. "I've got some money saved. Not much, but enough to buy land if we're careful. Maybe build a small ranch. Raise horses." "Horses?" "Your father raised them. I worked with them in the army. Between us, we know enough to make it work." Nia's eyes lit up. "You're serious?" "Why not? We need something to build, something that's ours." "A ranch." She tested the word. "Our ranch." "If you want it." "I want it." She turned to face him fully. "But Matthew, I need to know something first." "What? What are we, you and me? Partners? Friends?" She hesitated. "Something more." Matthew had been avoiding this question even in his own mind. Sarah had been his wife. Emma, his daughter. Those were clear roles-defined relationships. But what was Nia to him? What was he to her? "I don't know," he admitted. "I know I care about you. Know I'd die to keep you safe. Know that when I think about the future, now you're in it. But I don't know what to call that. Do we need to call it anything? Don't we?" Nia thought about that. "Maybe not yet. Maybe we just let it be what it is until we figure out what that is." "That makes sense to you?" "No, but nothing about us makes sense." She smiled. We're two people who should be dead planning to raise horses in Montana. Sense doesn't really apply. Matthew laughed a real laugh, deep and genuine. Fair point. So we agree we don't label it, we just live it. Agreed. She kissed him then soft and slow. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. Montana, she said. Our ranch, our horses, our life. Sounds good. Sounds perfect. They slept close that night, wrapped in blankets against the cold. Matthew woke once in the darkness to find Nia watching him. What? He whispered. Just making sure you're real. I'm real. Good. She closed her eyes. I'd hate to wake up and find out this was all a dream. Me too. She fell back asleep. Matthew lay awake a while longer, thinking about everything that had changed in 2 weeks. He'd gone from a man who wanted to die to a man making plans for the future. From someone who avoided all connection to someone who couldn't imagine life without the woman sleeping beside him. It terrified him. But it also felt right in a way nothing had felt right since Sarah and Emma died. Morning brought fresh snow and the sound of riders approaching. Matthew was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. Nia grabbed the Colt, moved to cover. 4 riders emerged from the trees, rough-looking men armed riding tired horses. The leader was a big man with a scarred face and cold eyes. He spotted Matthew and pulled up short. Well, what do we have here? Matthew kept the rifle steady. Just passing through, no trouble. That's so. The big man's eyes found Nia lingered. Pretty woman you got there. Keep riding. Now that ain't very friendly. The big man smiled, showing broken teeth. Name's Cullen. These are my boys. We're looking for supplies. Figured maybe you could share. We don't have anything to share. I think you do. Cullen's hand drifted toward his gun. I think you got food, ammunition, and that pretty woman. And I think you're gonna share all 3. Matthew's finger touched the trigger. Last chance. Right away. Or what you'll shoot. Cullen laughed. There's 4 of us, old man. You kill me, my boys kill you, and take the woman anyway. So why don't you make this easy on everyone and just hand her over? Matthew, Nia whispered. Don't. Stay behind me. There's 4 of them. I know. Cullen's smile widened. Smart woman. Listen to her, old man. Give her to us and walk away. Live to see another day. Matthew's jaw set. Not happening. Then you're a fool. Cullen's hand moved. Matthew fired first. The shot took Cullen in the chest, knocked him off his horse. Before the body hit the ground, Matthew worked the lever, fired again. Second rider went down. The other 2 scattered, diving for cover. Bullets whined past Matthew's head. He dropped behind a fallen log, Nia beside him. 2 left, she shouted. I know, stay low. Gunfire erupted from the trees. Wood splintered. Matthew fired back blind shots to keep them pinned. Beside him, Nia aimed carefully, squeezed off a round. Someone screamed. 1 down, she yelled. 1 to go. Silence fell. Matthew peered over the log, scanning the trees. Nothing moved. Then behind them. Footsteps in snow. Matthew spun. The last rider was charging, knife-drawn face twisted with rage. No time to aim. Matthew fired from the hip. The shot went wide. The man kept coming. Nia stepped forward and shot him in the face. He dropped 3 feet from Matthew, dead before he hit the ground. Matthew stared at the body, then at Nia. She was shaking, gun still raised. You okay? He asked. I killed him. You saved my life. I killed him. Her voice cracked. I looked him in the eye and killed him. Matthew took the gun from her trembling hands, set it aside, pulled her close. I know. He was going to kill you. Yes. So I had to. Yes. She pressed her face against his chest. I've never killed anyone before. Garrett's men, that was different. They were far away. But this, I saw his eyes. Saw the moment he died. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'd do it again. I just... She pulled back, looked up at him. I need you to know something. What? I would kill anyone who tried to hurt you. Anyone. I don't care who they are or why they're doing it. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine. Matthew cupped her face in his hands. And you're mine. And I'll do the same for you. That's what this is. That's what we are. What are we? Two people who found each other in hell and decided to walk out together. He kissed her forehead. And nobody's taking that away from us. Not Garrett's men. Not these bastards. Nobody. Nia nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. Okay. They searched the bodies, found ammunition, a little money, and some dried beef. Took what they needed, left the rest. Then they mounted up and rode away, leaving 4 more dead men behind them. How many is that now? Nia asked after a mile. How many what? How many men we've killed, total? Matthew counted in his head. Garrett and his 4 men. These 4. 9 total. 9 dead men because of us. 9 dead men who tried to kill us first. Big difference. Is there? She looked at him. At what point do we become the monsters? When we start hunting people instead of defending ourselves. When we take pleasure in it. When we stop caring about the difference between justice and murder. He met her eyes. We're not there yet, and I'll make damn sure we never get there. Promise. Promise. They rode in silence for a while. Then Nia spoke again, her voice steadier now. Montana's looking better all the time. Why's that? Because the sooner we get there, the sooner we can stop killing people and start living. She glanced at him. I'm tired of death, Matthew. I want life. Normal, boring, peaceful life. Raising horses sounds pretty boring. Good. I want boring. I want to wake up without checking for guns. Want to go to sleep without wondering if someone's going to break down the door. Want to spend a whole day without blood on my hands. We'll get there, Matthew promised. Another few weeks and we're across the border. Find some land, build a cabin, start over. You really think we can do that? Just start over like none of this happened? No. But I think we can build something new on top of what happened. Use all this. He gestured vaguely at the trail behind them, at the blood and death and struggle, as foundation, instead of letting it bury us. Nia smiled slightly. You've got a poet's soul, you know that. Sarah used to say the same thing. She was right. They made camp that night near a small lake, frozen solid and covered in snow. Matthew caught fish through a hole in the ice while Nia tended the fire. They cooked the fish with the last of their salt, ate until they were full, then sat wrapped in blankets watching stars reflect off the ice. Tell me about the ranch, Nia said. What you imagine. Matthew thought about it. Small at first. Maybe a dozen horses. Build it slow, careful. We'd need a barn before the cabin horses come first. Then a small house. 2 rooms to start. We can expand later if we need to. If we need to? She glanced at him. You thinking about children? The question hit him like a punch. He hadn't thought about children since Emma died. Couldn't imagine replacing her. Couldn't imagine loving another child the way he'd loved his daughter. I don't know, he said honestly. Part of me wants that. Family, future. But part of me is terrified. What if they die like Emma did? Nia finished quietly. I've thought about that too. What if I'm like my mother? What if fever takes them? What if soldiers come? What if? She turned to face him. But you know what's worse than those fears. What? Never trying. Living the rest of my life wondering what could have been. Looking back at 50 and realizing I was so scared of losing something I never let myself have it in the first place. Matthew absorbed that. You want children. Someday. Maybe. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then we have each other and the horses, and that's enough." She squeezed his hand. "But I'm not going to let fear decide my future anymore. I did that for 5 years, and all it got me was emptiness." "Fair enough. What about you? Can you imagine it? Us with children?" Matthew closed his eyes, tried to picture it. A small cabin. Nia, pregnant, glowing. A child with her eyes and his stubborn streak. Teaching a son or daughter to ride to track to survive. Coming home to noise and laughter instead of silence. It hurt to imagine, but it also felt possible in a way it hadn't a month ago. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I can imagine it." "Good." Nia rested her head on his shoulder. "Then maybe someday we'll make it real." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the fire crackle and the ice creak under its blanket of snow. Eventually, Nia spoke again. "Matthew." "Yeah." "I love you." The words hung in the cold air. Matthew's breath caught. He hadn't heard those words since Sarah died. Hadn't said them to anyone. Hadn't thought he'd ever want to hear them or say them again. But sitting there with Nia pressed against his side, watching stars wheel overhead, he realized something important. "I love you too," he said. She tilted her face up. He kissed her soft, at first, then deeper, pouring 3 years of loneliness and grief and hope into that single connection. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "Say it again," she whispered. "I love you." Again. "I love you, Nia. I love you." She kissed him again, harder this time, urgent with need and relief and joy. They fell back onto the blankets, holding each other tight, whispering promises and declarations between kisses. Later, wrapped in each other's arms, Nia spoke into the darkness. "This is real, right? Not a dream." "It's real." "Good, because I don't want to wake up." "You won't. We're both awake, both alive, both here. Both in love. Both in love." Matthew agreed. They fell asleep, tangled together, two people who'd spent years running from life, finally brave enough to embrace it. Morning came with clear skies and bitter cold. They broke camp quickly, eager to keep moving. Matthew's horse was holding up well with the makeshift shoe. Another week and they'd reach a town where he could get it fixed properly. They rode hard through the day, covering good distance. By evening they spotted smoke in the distance, a settlement of some kind. "Think it's safe?" Nia asked. "Only one way to find out." They approached cautiously, rifles ready. The settlement turned out to be a small trading post, 6 buildings clustered around a main road. A few people moved about, going about their business. Everything looked peaceful. They tied their horses outside the general store and went inside. The proprietor, a heavy-set man with kind eyes, looked up from his counter. "Help you folks?" "Need supplies," Matthew said. "Food, ammunition if you have it." "Got both. You paying cash or trade?" "Cash." The man nodded, started gathering items. "Where you headed?" "North." "Montana?" "Maybe." "Long trip this time of year." "You got shelter planned?" "We'll manage." The man studied them, their worn clothes, tired faces, the way they stood close together like they were used to watching each other's backs. "You running from something?" "Used to be," Matthew said. "Not anymore." "Fair enough. None of my business anyway." He tallied up the supplies. "That'll be $12. Matthew paid, took the parcels. They were turning to leave when the man spoke again. "Hey, if you're looking for work, there's a ranch about 20 miles north. Owner's getting old, needs help. Pays fair, provides room and board. Might be worth stopping." Matthew glanced at Nia. She nodded slightly. "We'll think about it," Matthew said. "Thanks." Outside, they loaded the supplies onto their horses. Nia looked thoughtful. "What are you thinking?" Matthew asked. "Maybe we should stop. Take that job. Work through the winter, save money, then buy our own place in spring. You want to work for someone else? I want to build something real, and we need money to do that. We could spend the winter running, barely surviving, or we could spend it working, saving, planning. Which sounds better? Matthew considered. She was right. They had enough to survive a few more weeks, but not enough to buy land and stock it with horses. If they could work through winter, save their wages, they'd be in much better shape come spring. All right, he said. We'll check it out. If it feels safe, we stay. If not, we keep moving. Deal. They mounted up and headed north. The ranch appeared just before dusk, a sprawling operation with a large barn, multiple corrals, and a main house that had seen better days. An old man was working in the yard repairing a fence. He looked up as they approached. Help you? Heard you might need workers, Matthew called. The old man straightened, studying them. You any good with horses? Both of us are. That's so? He walked closer, taking in their appearance. Where you from? Wyoming. Long way from home. Don't have a home anymore? The old man nodded slowly. I'm Robert Harrison. This is my place. Been running it 40 years, getting too old to do it alone. Lost my sons to fever 5 years back. Wife died last winter. It's just me now. We're sorry for your loss, Nia said quietly. Life's hard. We manage. Harrison looked between them. I can offer room, board, and $30 a month each. Works hard feeding, training, breaking horses. Long hours. But it's honest work, and I treat my people fair. Interested? Matthew looked at Nia. She nodded. We're interested, Matthew said. When can we start? Right now, if you're willing. Got 20 horses, need feeding before dark. We're willing. Harrison smiled for the first time. Then welcome to the Harrison Ranch. Let's get your horses settled, and I'll show you where you'll be staying. They worked until full dark, feeding horses, checking water, repairing a broken gate. Harrison watched them work, nodding approval at their competence and efficiency. You two know your way around horses, he said. Where'd you learn? My father, Nia said. He raised them, taught me everything. And you? Harrison asked Matthew. Army. Worked as a scout for 2 years. Good credentials. Harrison led them to a small cabin behind the barn. This was my son's place. Been empty since they died. It's yours now if you want it. The cabin was simple but solid, one room with a stove, a bed, a table, and 2 chairs. Windows looked out over the corrals. It wasn't much, but it was clean and warm and safe. It's perfect, Nia said. Good. Harrison turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. I don't ask questions about people's pasts. You're here to work. I'm here to pay you. What happened before you arrived? That's your business. Fair? Fair. Matthew agreed. Then we'll get along just fine. See you both at dawn. He left. Matthew and Nia stood in the cabin looking around. We did it, Nia said softly. We actually did it. We found a place. For now. Come spring, we find our own place. But for now, this is home. Matthew pulled her close. For now, this is home. They spent their first night in the cabin, wrapped in each other's arms, safe and warm, and finally able to rest without fear. Outside, horses nickered in the corrals. Inside, 2 people who'd survived hell began the slow work of learning how to live again. And for the first time in years, both of them believed that maybe, just maybe, they deserved a happy ending after all. Winter settled over the Harrison Ranch like a heavy blanket, but Matthew and Nia barely noticed. They rose before dawn every morning, worked until their muscles ached, fell into bed exhausted. The work was hard, breaking ice in water troughs, mucking stalls in sub-zero cold training, stubborn horses that tested their patience. But it was good work, honest work, the kind that made them too tired to think about the blood they'd spilled or the people they'd killed. 3 weeks passed before Harrison invited them to dinner in the main house. They accepted, nervous but curious. The old man served venison stew and fresh bread, poured whiskey into 3 glasses. "To surviving," he said, raising his glass. They drank. The whiskey burned, going down, warming Matthew from the inside. "You two are good workers," Harrison said, spooning stew into his mouth. "Best I've had in years. Horses respond to you. Especially that mare you're training, Nia. She was wild as hell when I got her. Now she's eating out of your hand." "She just needed someone to be patient with her," Nia said. "Most people don't have that kind of patience. They want results now. Break the spirit instead of earning trust." Harrison looked between them. "How long you planning to stay?" "Through winter," Matthew said. "Come spring, we're thinking about buying our own place, maybe in Montana." "Montana's good country. Hard country, but good. You'll need capital, though. Land's not cheap. We're saving. I know you are. I've seen how little you spend in town." Harrison refilled their glasses. "I want to make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" Matthew asked cautiously. "Stay on through spring. Help me with the breeding season. That's when things get crazy, foals dropping mares, getting temperamental buyers coming through. I need people I can trust. You do that, I'll pay you double wages for those 3 months. That should give you enough to buy decent land and stock it properly." Matthew glanced at Nia. She was doing calculations in her head. He could see it in her eyes. "That would put us at almost $300, she said. "More than enough." "Plus," Harrison continued, "I know a man in Montana, fellow I served with in the war. He's got land he's looking to sell, 200 acres, good water, sheltered valley. Perfect for horses. He'd give you a fair price, especially if I write you a letter of introduction." "Why would you do that?" Matthew asked. "You barely know us." Harrison set down his spoon, looked at them both. "Because you remind me of my sons. Good workers, honest. And you've got something they never had. You've got each other. My boys died alone, one after the other. Fever took them before they could find wives, start families. I'd like to think somewhere out there, 2 young people are getting the chance my sons never got." His voice roughened. "Call it an old man sentimentality, but I'd like to help you build something." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Breeding season's hell. You'll earn every penny." Harrison smiled. "But if you're willing, I'd be grateful for the help." Matthew extended his hand. "We're willing." They shook on it. The deal was made. That night, walking back to their cabin under a sky full of stars, Nia took Matthew's hand. 3 more months and we'll have our ranch." "Our ranch," Matthew repeated, testing the words. "Still sounds like a dream." "Good dreams are worth working for." "You think we can do it? Really build something that lasts?" She stopped walking, turned to face him. "Matthew Cole, we survived blizzards, slavers, gunfights, and 3 years of grief trying to kill us both. If we can survive all that, we can sure as hell raise some horses in Montana." He laughed, pulled her close. "When did you get so confident?" "When I stopped running and started fighting. When I stopped being invisible and started being seen." She kissed him softly. "When you opened that door and let me in. Best mistake I ever made. Second best. What's the first? Falling in love with me. That wasn't a mistake. That was the smartest thing I've ever done." She smiled against his lips. "Smooth talker." "I learned from the best." They walked the rest of the way in comfortable silence, hands clasped, breath fogging in the cold air. Inside the cabin, they built up the fire shed. Their heavy coats fell into bed. Matthew held Nia close, her back against his chest, his arm wrapped around her waist. "Matthew," she whispered into the darkness. "Yeah, I'm happy. Is that allowed? After everything that's happened, after everyone we've lost, am I allowed to be happy?" He thought about Sarah and Emma, about the years he'd spent punishing himself for surviving them, about the promise he'd broken to join them in death, about whether they'd forgive him for choosing life instead. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You're allowed. We both are. The people we lost, they wouldn't want us to die with them. They'd want us to live, Really live, not just survive. You think Sarah and Emma would understand about us? I think Sarah would be glad I found someone. And I think Emma would love you. You're strong like her mother was, fierce like she wanted to be. Nia turned in his arms to face him. Tell me something about them, something happy. Matthew smiled in the darkness. Emma used to sneak carrots to the horses. She'd take them from the kitchen when Sarah wasn't looking, hide them in her pockets. Sarah knew, of course. She always knew. But she pretended not to notice. Said it was good for Emma to learn kindness, even if it meant stealing vegetables. She sounds wonderful. She was. Both of them were. His voice steadied. And I'll always love them, always carry them with me. But that doesn't mean I can't love you too. Heart's got room for both. I feel the same way. About my family. About you. She kissed him gently. We're building something new, but we're bringing the old with us. The good parts, the parts worth keeping. Yeah, we are. They fell asleep, wrapped together. Two people who'd learned that love doesn't replace love. It just grows to make room for more. January came hard and bitter. Temperatures dropped so low that water froze in minutes, and breath turned to ice on beards and eyelashes. But the work continued. Matthew and Nia rose each morning while stars still burned overhead, broke ice-fed horses repaired whatever the cold had broken overnight. One morning, Nia found a mare down in her stall laboring with a foal that was coming wrong. She ran for Matthew, found him in the barn with Harrison. The bay mare, she's in trouble. They ran together, all three of them. The mare was thrashing, eyes rolling white with pain. Harrison examined her, quickly cursed. Foal's breech. We need to turn it or we'll lose them both. What do we do? Matthew asked. Hold her steady. Nia, talk to her. Keep her calm. I'm going in. What followed was brutal work. Harrison's arm deep in the mare, sweat pouring despite the cold, the horse screaming and fighting. Nia pressed her forehead against the mare's neck, whispering in Apache, singing soft words that somehow reached through the animal's panic. Got it. Harrison gasped. Come on, Mama. Push. The mare pushed. Once. Twice. On the third push, the foal slid free in a rush of fluid and blood. It lay motionless in the straw. Is it alive? Nia asked, voice breaking. Harrison grabbed a rag, rubbed the foal vigorously. Nothing. He rubbed harder, cleared its nose and mouth. Still nothing. Come on, he muttered. Come on, damn you. Matthew knelt beside him, pressed his ear to the foal's chest. A heartbeat. Faint, but there. It's alive, just stunned. He grabbed another rag, helped Harrison work on the foal. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the foal gasped, coughed, drew a shuddering breath. That's it, Harrison breathed. That's it. Welcome to the world, little one. The mare nickered, struggling to stand. They helped her up, guided her to her baby. She sniffed the foal, licked it clean, and the foal a filly. They saw now, wobbled to her feet and searched for milk. The three of them stood watching, covered in blood and exhausted but smiling. Good work, Harrison said. Both of you. You saved them. We all did, Matthew corrected. Maybe. But Nia, the way you calmed that mare. That was something special. You've got a gift. Nia looked at the mare and foal, both alive and healthy, and felt something loosen in her chest. My mother used to sing to the horses, said they understood tone if not words. I haven't done it since she died. But when I saw that mare in pain, it just came back. Your mother was right, and she'd be proud of you. Tears slid down Nia's cheeks. Thank you. They cleaned up, left the mare and foal to bond, walked back through the pre-dawn darkness. Matthew put his arm around Nia's shoulders. You okay? Yeah, just emotional. Seeing new life come into the world, it reminded me there's more to living than just surviving. There's creating, Matthew said. Building, growing. That's what we'll do in Montana. Create something from nothing. Build something that lasts. I can't wait. February brought more foals, 10 in total, all healthy, all thriving under Nia's careful attention. She had a way with the mares that even Harrison marveled at. They trusted her, followed her, let her handle their babies when they'd kick at anyone else. "You're a natural," Matthew told her one evening as they walked back to the cabin. "I just remember what my father taught me. Respect them. Show them you're not a threat. They'll do the rest. It's more than that. You've got instinct, timing. You know what a horse needs before it knows itself." She smiled. "Maybe I found my calling." "Maybe you did." March arrived with warmer winds and melting snow. Buyers started coming through, ranchers from Colorado, Montana, even as far as California. Harrison showed his stock, named his prices, closed deals. Matthew and Nia worked the demonstrations, showing off the horse's training and temperament. "That mare there," one buyer said, pointing to the bay who'd nearly died foaling. "The one with the filly. She for sale?" Harrison glanced at Nia. She shook her head slightly. "Not that one," Harrison said, "but I've got others just as good." After the buyer left with 3 different horses, Harrison pulled Nia aside. "You want that mare?" "I shouldn't. We're saving for land." "I'm giving her to you, her and the filly. Call it a bonus for all the hard work." "Robert, I can't." "You can and you will. That mare would be dead without you. So would her foal. They're yours. End of discussion." Nia's eyes filled. "Thank you. Thank me by taking good care of them, and by sending me a letter when you're settled in Montana. Let me know how you're doing." "I will, I promise." April came warm and green. Their savings had grown to $320, more than enough for land lumber and starter stock. Harrison wrote the promised letter of introduction to his friend in Montana. The day before they were set to leave, he called them to the main house one last time. "I want you to have this," he said, handing Matthew a folded piece of paper. Matthew opened it. A deed. To the Harrison Ranch. "What?" "I'm old, tired, and I've got no one to leave this place to." Harrison held up a hand, cutting off Matthew's protest. "I'm not dying tomorrow, but I'm not going to run this place forever either. This deed says when I pass, the ranch comes to you. Both of you. You can sell it, keep it, do whatever you want. But I want to know it's going to people who'll respect it." "Robert, we can't accept this," Nia said. "You already did. It's done. Filed with the county clerk and everything." He smiled at their shocked faces. "Now get out of here. Go build your dream in Montana. Come back and visit an old man sometimes. And when the time comes, you'll know what to do with this place." Matthew couldn't find words. Neither could Nia. They just hugged the old man, all 3 of them crying, saying goodbye to someone who'd become family in 4 short months. They left at dawn the next day, leading the bay mare and her filly, carrying everything they owned and enough money to start fresh. Harrison stood in his doorway waving until they were out of sight. Montana appeared after 2 weeks of steady riding, rolling grasslands, stretching toward distant mountains, rivers running clear and cold sky so big it made Matthew dizzy. They found Harrison's friend, a weathered rancher named Coleman, who showed them the land he was selling. 200 acres in a sheltered valley, a creek running through it, good grass, stands of timber for building. Coleman wanted $200. Matthew paid him $220 fair price for good land. They spent that first night camped on their own property, sitting by a fire and staring at the stars. "We did it," Nia whispered. "We actually did it." "We did. What do we build first?" "Barn, corral, then the cabin." Matthew squeezed her hand. "One step at a time. We've got the rest of our lives." "The rest of our lives." She tested the words. "I like how that sounds." "Me too." They built through spring and summer, a barn first solid and spacious, then corrals. Then a small cabin, 1 room to start with plans to expand. They bought 6 more horses with their remaining money, bred them, trained them, sold 3 by fall at good profit. That winter Nia told Matthew she was pregnant. He froze coffee cup halfway to his lips. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Fear and joy warred in his chest. "Nia, I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we're doing this." She took his hands. "We're bringing life into the world. Our life. And we're going to love that baby, and raise it right and teach it everything we know. And yes, maybe someday something terrible will happen. But until then, we're going to live. Really live. Like we promised." Matthew pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "Okay. Okay. Okay." He kissed her. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." They laughed and cried and held each other, two people who'd survived hell, now brave enough to create heaven. The baby came in early summer, a boy with Nia's dark eyes and Matthew's stubborn chin. They named him James after Matthew's father and Robert after the man who'd helped them build their dream. Matthew held his son for the first time and felt something break open in his chest, not the sharp pain of loss, but the sweet ache of love. He thought of Sarah, and Emma sent them a silent prayer of thanks for teaching him how to be a father, how to love without holding back. Nia watched him with their son and smiled. "You're going to be a great dad." "I'm going to try." That's all any of us can do. Years passed. They built 2 more rooms onto the cabin, bought more horses. Their reputation grew. People came from 3 states to buy horses trained by the couple in Montana who had a gift with animals. James grew into a strong boy who loved horses as much as his parents. Nia taught him Apache songs. Matthew taught him to track and shoot and survive. On James's 5th birthday, they received a letter. Harrison had died peacefully in his sleep. The ranch was theirs now, just as he'd promised. They traveled back for the funeral, laid flowers on his grave beside his sons and wife. Then they returned to Montana, to the life they'd built, carrying Harrison's memory with them. More years passed. James grew tall. They had a daughter, Emma, named for the little girl Matthew had lost. Then another son. The cabin expanded again. The ranch prospered, and every night, Matthew and Nia sat on their porch, watching the sunset over their land, holding hands like they had that first night in the trapper's cabin when they'd both been running from death. "You ever regret it?" Nia asked one evening, her hair silver now, her face lined with years of smiling. "Opening that door, letting me in." Matthew looked at their children playing in the yard, at the horses grazing in the pasture, at the life they'd built from ashes and blood and stubborn refusal to give up. "Not for a second," he said. "Good. Because I'm not letting you take it back now." He laughed, kissed her temple. "Wouldn't dream of it." The sun set, stars appeared, and 2 people who'd knocked on death's door and chosen life instead sat together, proof that even the coldest winter eventually gives way to spring, and even the most broken hearts can learn to beat again if given reason enough to try. They'd found their reason in each other, and they'd built a life worth living, one day, one choice, one moment of courage at a time. That was their story, not of 2 people who survived, but of 2 people who decided survival wasn't enough and chose to thrive instead. Together. Always together. And that made all the difference.